Okay, we're going to go over quiz 6 now, and let's start with number 1. Uh, Make sure you get the concepts down and be confident with it. We're going to start with the idea that, let me get up here to the iPad. And question number 1 was talking about the function, the cubic function that we're dealing with there. And it was asking, first question is, what are the critical points? Uh, and the point of inflection will be coming next. But the critical points we find for a polynomial, we know, and we can know the general shape of the cubic. It's got these other, we've got these values in between here. So it indicates that the cubic starts down at to the left and up to the right. And it's got the high and the low in between. And therefore, the critical points are going to occur when we got a polynomial. Remember, the critical points are going to be where the first derivative is equal to 0 or where the first derivative is undefined. And when you've got a polynomial, it's defined everywhere. So in this situation, the first derivative is going to occur where the slope is equal to 0. The critical points are going to occur where the slope is equal to 0, and that is where the first derivative is equal to 0. And remember, I'm asking you to put the answer in the form xy. So make sure you remember that at the end. All right, so part of the deal is, first thing we got to do is calculate what the derivative is of the function. We end up with 3x squared plus 12x plus 9, factor out of 3, and then break it in, factor it out here into two binomials. And you notice we've got x and x, we've got 3 and 1, and that does give us 4. So plus and plus works wonderfully. Therefore, x, when we set this equal to 0, we end up with x plus 3. If we set that equal to 0, x plus 3 equals 0, or x plus 1 equals 0. That means x equals minus 3 or x equals minus 1. Those are the x values for the critical point. I need it in the form xy. So that means I need to plug those back into, we want the actual value of the function. So I need f of negative 3. And that does give me negative 3 cubed plus 6 negative 3 squared plus 9 negative 3 plus 2 equals negative 27 plus 6 times 9 minus 27 plus 2 minus 27 and minus 27. Notice I get 54 minus 54 plus 2 equals 2. So I've got negative 3, 2. That's one critical point. The other one is going to be where x equals minus 1. And we have f of minus 1 equal to negative 1 cubed minus, so that's going to be plus 6 times minus 1 squared, minus 9 plus 2. I get minus 1. That's going to be plus 6 minus 9 plus 2. Minus 10 plus 8 is minus 2. So I have the second critical point at minus 1 minus 2. So the answer to the first question is, what are the critical points? We've got the critical points are at minus 1, minus 2, and at minus 3, 2. Notice it's important to realize here, negative 3 is to the left of negative 1. So negative 3 must be here, and negative 1 must be there. So as a result, you can see that this does correspond to the positive y, and this negative 1 corresponds to the negative y. So that makes total sense. All right. Inflection point, we're talking about the place where the concavity changes. So you can see concave down and you can see concave up. All right, so it changes and it's going to be halfway between negative 3 and negative 1. And in this case, that's going to be halfway between 2 and negative 2. So it's leaning towards 0. So what we've got to do is find the second derivative. So we take the second derivative and set it equal to 0 and find out what that value is. So the second derivative of x is equal to, if we look back up here, we end up with 6x plus 12, which is 6 times x plus 2. And that's indicating, therefore, that in order to set this equal to 0, we get x plus 2 equals 0. That means x equals minus 2. So the next part of the question is, the critical point, the inflection point occurs at x equals minus 2. What's the value of the function there? F of minus 2 equals, we've got minus 2 cubed plus 6 times minus 2 squared plus 9 times minus 2 plus 2. And that gives us minus 8 minus 4, that's positive 4, that's plus 24, minus 18 plus 2. That gives us minus 26 plus 26, that equals 0. So we've got negative 2, 0. So it turns out the answer to part B in terms of xy is negative 2, 0. And notice that that occurs halfway between negative 1 and negative 3 is the negative 2. And the 2 and the negative 2 in this case turn out to be halfway in between is 0. So that turns out to be the inflection point is at negative 2, 0. That's the answer to part B. Okay, let's hit part C in just a second here.